Hey, everybody. Hey, happy, terrific Tuesday. Thank you all for being with me again for another edition of Positive Tea with Fee. I hope everybody has started your week off well. We did get rid of some of the bad weather that was kind of hidden corners everywhere. And so I'm just glad that everybody is able to be here, and thanks for the support. So for tonight's show, wake up, and this is a topic that I've wanted to get into for a while. Wake up now. Basically, the catalyst for this is procrastination. There's a lot of things going on in the world that can blindside you, distract you, but just in general, it is a natural inclination to procrastinate. And so I definitely wanted that to be a topic that we get into, and I want to share with you some of the things that's helped me. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, stop sleeping. That's going to be your number one step in waking up and taking care of business, is to stop sleeping. And obviously, we're not talking about regular sleep or physical sleep, but that can be part of it. But it's not by itself. When we talk about sleeping, we talk about not being productive. We talk about not feeling motivated. We talk about kind of spinning your wheels. And so that's what I mean when I say stop sleeping. Sleeping in that content, sleeping in that way. And so for me personally, I had a really big problem with procrastination in my 20s, really big problem. I would always think that I could get to it later. I could do this later. And I'm sorry, but one of the biggest things that gets you out of that is getting older. I'm not going to say old because you're only as old as you feel. I'm 40, and some days I feel double that, and some days I feel half of that. So I'm not going to say getting old. I'm just going to say getting older because you have less time. And we realize that more when we get older, because I think at that point we've lived enough life to just kind of understand, this is what we need to do during this period of time. And so I think life kind of knocks on your door, and so life itself is going to stop you from doing some of that sleeping naturally, without any equivocations to anything else, because when life gets busy, you either get with it, get on board, or get ran over. That's just kind of how it works. But for me personally, the thing that really like got me out of that mode is understanding that you have to prioritize things. See, one of the things that started happening as I got in my late 20s, I became a mother, and I was able to kind of put things in perspective more as a mother, because it was no longer just me to think about. And so, with that being said, I had a lot of goals that I wanted to set for my child. But within setting those goals for my child, I was also able to set those goals for myself. And a lot of these things were goals that I'd had all my life, but they just weren't in a priority. They didn't have from top to bottom, bottom to top. There were just things that were in my mind. I felt either I was capable of them, or I would be capable of them if I took A, B, and C steps. And so it just wasn't something important. So the best thing that I ever did was make lists. Now we make mental lists, obviously, and we have our dream lists. But I'm talking about a more practical list. I'm talking about a practical list of things that can be done, things that are tangible, things that are doable. And so let's be clear about that. We have a list of long term goals, and we have things that are in the future, but they're not tangible right then. So we're not going to start with those. To stop sleeping, you have to start with a technical list. You have to start with a list of things that you know you can do, you need to get done, and you have to get done right then. So that's the first thing that I did. Once the list was made, we're going back to that priority word. We went from top to bottom in importance. And what I mean by that is if it's on the list, it's important, but you have to rank the things that you have to do. We do it all the time when we wake up in the morning in a typical situation, but we also have to do that with our list. Okay. We have to do that with our list of practicality. And one of the things that we have to do with the list of practicality is you have to figure out where you are in life and those things that you have going on. You're going to have to figure out what you need to get done first, and then you got to figure out what you have to get done first. And sometimes those are the same things, sometimes they are not. But in the list of practicality, it's not about things you want to do. I want to make that very clear. I started making lists of things that I had to do and couldn't wait on. And that's going to be the first thing. It's a hard, tough rule, but one of the ways to push yourself right on out of the procrastination realm is to start getting things done that you have no choice in. And that's going to start with your needs, not your wants. Another thing that I did to stop sleeping on everything is I stopped putting it off. I would have to have that inner conversation with myself. And what that meant for me, unfortunately, a lot of times is getting the things done that I had to get done but didn't want to do, you know? And it's just the way it is because I knew that once those things were done, I could move on down my list. So you got to keep that in mind. Just like as a child might have a plate, there's vegetables on the plate. As a child, I started eating my vegetables first as I got older because see, when you go from school age to preteen, teenager, there's no longer, "Mom, I don't wanna eat that." You're no longer eating, what you want to fulfill your appetite. You're eating what you need to fulfill not just your appetite, but fulfill your nutrition needs as well. So I ate my vegetables first. So that's the same way you have to look when you prioritize that list. This is what I must get done. There's no way that I can avoid this. It has to get done, and I need to do it even though I don't want to do it. So go ahead and get those things out of the way if possible. And then you start moving down your list. So, what it became for me after prioritizing that list, it kind of was a mental reward system. I got the things done that I had to get done, but did not want to do. Okay. I had gotten the things done that I had to do, but maybe wanted to do. And I moved down the list and moved down the list the same way you kind of counterclockwise on a plate, and the last thing you get is dessert. So you have to start looking at tasks that way. You have to start looking at the things in your life that need to get done and get that list done and stop being lazy. Lazy is not just a physical state of mind. I have never been a lazy person. I like my sleep, I like my relaxation, but I've never been a lazy person. But I do remember a point, it was between high school and college where I became mentally lazy. And the reason I became mentally lazy is again procrastination. A lot of times we are being mentally lazy because we just don't want to do something. And so, in putting it off, it's not that it's like a really hard task. And sometimes these are not even tasks we don't particularly like doing, we just don't want to do them. And we get into a mentally lazy state of mind, and that's something that can be very hard to get rid of. Now, one thing that can get you guys out of it real quick is a baby crying in the middle of the night. But I'm not recommending that as a solution. I love my child. I'm glad God gave him to me, but that's for another video. But I'm saying that I'm not suggesting that. Motherhood is definitely one of those things that'll get you up. Like I said before, life is one of the biggest things that will push you out of procrastination if it hits you hard enough or if it hits you intense enough. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing, but it's everybody has their own way of things. Motherhood was one of those extra boosts for me. For you, it may be something else. But we just need to understand that mental laziness is a disease that gets into your mentality. You have to do everything you can to fight it. You have to do everything you can to recondition your mind to understand you got stuff to do. Let's get it done. The second thing that we want to talk about is wake up. Just wake up. Okay. Now, how are you going to wake up if you've been sleeping for so long? That's a question. And me personally, I'm going to tell you what I did. I started small. I started small. Um, what I mean by started small is I made my first step. Okay. So my first step was doing a little bit of research. Okay. Now, with technology, the way it has been in the last 15 years, that doesn't necessarily require a lot. I'm not recommending that we just put all of our faith in electronics. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that for a lot of us tech wizards, or a lot of us who love our electronics, look up something. You're on your cell phone anyway, looking up music and looking at clothes. Look up something productive. Okay. If you are one of those that's trying to figure out what college you want to go to, start researching universities. And if you're not ready for a university, start researching courses, start researching any type of literature, start researching any type of local resources that you can use to enhance yourself. Okay. Now, with me, what I started doing is I would pick a website once or twice a week to go on. You'd be surprised, depending on what field you're interested in, that you can go into. Um, I've always been interested in sociology, public relations, philosophy, professional studies, of course, theology, anything that has to do with the study of things on a deeper wave of thinking. And I just started going one by one. Next thing from that step, I started going to the library. I started watching TV shows that were educational. TV gets a bad name, just like social media. But if you know that those are things that you like, make it productive. We're fortunate enough in the times that we're living in this generation, that we have so many things at our disposal. And right now, while we're going through the pandemic, you may not want to go out and be around people, but guess what? You're on your phone anyway. You're researching things on your iPad anyway. Look at something that's going to enhance your life. Look at something that's going to enhance your future. And you might be surprised at what big difference it makes in how you feel about yourself. Start small. Start looking through newspaper clippings that are going to give you a motivational edge. Stay away from negative things. It may sound complex, but it's not. If you're trying to enhance your life physically, start drinking a bottle of water a day. You know, don't set the stakes too high. If you have been asleep for a while, you ever wake up in the morning or from a deep nap, when you wake up from that, you're not necessarily completely awake. It's a gradual process. It's the same when you're waking up from procrastination and you're taking yourself to another level to start to take care of business. You can't go from A to A to G. You have to go from A to B. And so, to go from A to B, that may not be where you're going to end up in the next week, the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, but you have to start somewhere. So your first step is to wake up. Your first step may be getting out of bed, fixing a cup of coffee. Your first step might be getting up out of bed and making a phone call to a trusted friend or associate. Your first step might be different than somebody else's step. But for me, I started simple research. And from that simple research, I was able to understand the meaning of so many things that were perplexing, things I had been putting off, things that took me to another level, but I had to wake up out of the sleep of procrastination to do so. And you're going to have to do the same. And what works for one may not work for another. I do have a friend also that when she started waking up out of her procrastination, she would wake up and just blast the radio. Now, of course, that's not going to work for someone who has a house full of toddlers. That's not going to work for, somebody who doesn't like music, or if you have neighbors, you know, that have a certain sleeping schedule, you're going to want to be, mindful of that. So that may not work for the next person, but it worked for her. And that's what woke her up out of her sleep stupor of procrastination. So we just have to do what we have to do. Another thing that I started doing a few years ago. And it's not something that I do all the time, but it's something that I still do here and there. But what I started doing regularly is having a bottle of water by the bed or peppermint. Uh, waking up, taking a sip, that could wake you up. You know, things like that can wake you up. So that's the physical wake up, okay? For the mental wake up, a lot of times, outside of the research, what I would do is make little sticky notes, okay? And the sticky notes would just have, any term or anything that came to mind that was inspirational. So I would have one in my car. I would have one in different rooms. I would have them on the mirror, different places where I knew that I could see. And so after a while seeing those things, even if my mind started to wander and I'm daydreaming, sitting there, not doing anything productive, I became mentally awake because I was able to see those notes that I wrote. Okay. And you'll be surprised at keeping positive, motivational, constructive things right in front of you is going to make a difference. The reason it's going to make a difference is because we're creatures of habit. Okay. And so they say it's 21 days to form a habit. Okay. So maybe it's 21 days to unform a habit. And procrastination and waking up is a habit that forms. And so to unform it, it's going to take a minute. It's going to take some practice. It's going to take a few things that each and every single person, is going to have to do to get out of that procrastination mindset. Okay. So waking up, okay. And that's definitely going to be something that's going to help us. Stop sleeping, you wake up, you're awake. Now what? Start small. And then the next thing is get going. Okay. Get going. So you've stopped sleeping, you've woke up. Okay. So, the expression hit the ground running? When you're a procrastinator or a recovering procrastinator, sometimes that means just hit the ground, not running. Hit the ground crawling, hit the ground walking, just hit the ground. Okay. And so, to coincide with that starting small, you don't want to throw yourself into something that's going to push you right back into the pattern of procrastination. And so that's why you have to keep in mind that it's not an overnight thing. Okay, you're not going to go from being a procrastinator to being somebody that's got it all figured out. That's not how it's going to work. Unfortunately for me, in my early 30s, I did take on too much all at once. That not only caused me to be discouraged, it caused a little bit of bitterness at a lot of the things that I had taken on. And so I had to start getting some balance. Okay, so for me, Wednesdays, I don't do anything but go to work. Okay, that's it. I don't have anything scheduled on Wednesdays. Wednesday is one of those days for me now that I just chill. Okay. And it's usually the same with Saturdays, 9 times out of 10. I spend time, with my boy, or I spend time with family on those days, but I don't have anything that I do, any structured responsibilities on those days. And so you have to be able to understand that you cannot go from A to G or A to F. You can't do that. You have to use your own internal understanding of yourself to know what you can take on. You don't want to hit the ground running. You just want to hit the ground. So understand that any progress that you make from where you are to keep you out of the procrastination or from going back to procrastination, because the procrastination feels comfortable. Putting things off feels comfortable. It's like, oh, I got time to do this. I can do that later. Just like, with my preteen and his chores. He knows he's got chores to do. Some of them he doesn't mind doing, the other ones he may not want to do. But you know what? It's a natural thing for us to think, hey, we got time, let's put it off. No, you have to get going. And in order to do that, you're going to have a realistic start. okay? And get going. And make sure you reward yourself. Make sure you get in the mindset of I'm not where I was. Okay, because I remember during the times that I got discouraged and the times where I thought about going back to that procrastinated mindset is when I was taking on so much. And I was like, well, I did this and I did that, but you want to keep your mindset to knowing that you don't have all the time in the world. And you also want to keep your mindset to knowing where we are now, we can't go back to the way we used to think. You cannot continue doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So once you get to a certain point where you get going, you don't want to have that mindset again. And so sometimes you have to go back to the basics. Tell yourself, stop sleeping, start making those priority lists again. Tell yourself to wake up, start small, do what you got to do to get yourself out of that physical or mental slumber and get going all over again. Because when you are out of procrastination, keep in mind, just like an addict, okay, you're a recovering procrastinator. And so it's easy for you to go back into that mindset. So just keep yourself replenished with goals, with positivity. Like we've talked about on the show before, if you're already doing some of these things, keep doing those things. If you have an issue with procrastination, don't beat yourself up. I've been there. You just got to start somewhere. Okay. And once you get yourself in the groove, the understanding and the routine of not putting things off and understanding what works for you as an individual, it's going to be so much easier to wake up and take care of business. Now, if I ever get in the mode of, oh, I have so much to do, let me put it off, I know what to do to get myself out of that mindset. It's never going to be easy, but it's never as hard as we make it when we're procrastinating. So thanks guys for tuning in. It's been so fun tonight to let you guys know. Yes, I am a recovering procrastinator. And guess what? Not being a procrastinator has taken me to places I never knew that I would be. I stopped sleeping, I woke up, and I got going. And now it's easy for me to hit the ground, not just hit the ground, but hit the ground running. Thanks, y'all, for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Have a good night. Bye bye.